Dad used to bring us here when we were kids. Used to watch the ships. Only ship here these days is a bloody disco.
For almost 25 years, a huge former car ferry sat under the Tyne Bridge, not as a ship, but as one of the Northeast's most iconic nightclubs. The Tuxedo Princess, and later the Tuxedo Royale, became known across the region simply as the Boat. They hosted TV stars, musicians, football heroes, and even sparked plans for a floating hotel and an onboard swimming pool. For a generation growing up in the 80s and 90s, these ships helped define the Northeast nightlife and identity. Today we're looking back at their glory years, how a car ferry ended up with a revolving dance floor, the story behind the two famous boats, and which 1980s celebrity was headbutted on board the Tuxedo Princess. In the early 80s, Newcastle and Gateshead were changing fast, heavy industry was collapsing, shipyards were shutting, and nightlife and leisure were becoming the new frontier. One person right at the centre of that change was Michael Quadrini. Quadrini started out selling ice cream before moving into nightlife and opening Tuxedo Junction, just as disco was taking off. Tuxedo Junction on Market Street was considered an upmarket spot, with table telephones to chat up people across the room, champagne dining, strict dress codes, and even the occasional royal visitor. But Quadrini wanted something bigger, something that would outclass any venue in Newcastle and compete with the London club scene. That ambition set the stage for the region's first floating nightclub. The first ship was the TSS Caledonian Princess, built in 1961 by William Denny and Brothers in Dumbarton. For 20 years she worked as a Sea-Link roll-on roll-off ferry on routes like the Stranraer Lawn and across the Irish Sea. Originally, the Princess had a turntable on the vehicle deck, used to rotate trucks for disembarking. Quadrini saw it and realised he could turn it into a revolving dance floor, the feature that made the Princess famous. Retired from ferry service in 1981, she was purchased by Quadrini, stripped out, refurbished and reopened in December 1983 under the south side of the Tyne Bridge as the Tuxedo Princess. Quadrini had planned to moor the Princess on the Newcastle side, but planning permission forced him to the Gateshead bank, meaning customers had to walk over the swing bridge to get there. The Princess quickly stood out. She had multiple bars, restaurant areas, 2 dance floors and a strict dress code. People with visible tattoos were even turned away. Staff wore naval-style uniforms. She appeared in TV series like Our Friends in the North, Au Vie de Saint Pet and Spender, becoming one of Gateshead's most recognisable landmarks. Through the 80s and 90s, long queues would form along the gangplank, stilettos dodging the metal grates as everyone picked up their boarding passes. Students, yuppies, celebrities, sports stars all turned up. Among the best-known guests, Rose Royce, Ian Beale from EastEnders, Kevin Keegan, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Mick Hucknall, Gaza, Miss World, and Noel Edmonds. In 1985, bass guitarist of Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Mark O'Toole, suffered a suspected broken nose in what the press described as a fracas following being headbutted on board the Princess. He was forced to appear in heavy makeup for TV filming the next day. The band were later invited back by Quadrini for a make-up party in the VIP section to show there were no hard feelings. By the early 90s, the Princess was pulling in around £2 million a year, back when drinks cost about £1. Thousands of people packed the boat on busy nights. Of course, there were the occasional man overboard incidents, and the dress code was so strict one man was caught trying to lend his trousers to a mate, resulting in both being thrown out. But after just 5 years, in 1988, the Princess sailed off to Glasgow, following failed attempts to get her to London. Quadrini already had his eyes on a replacement. The second ship was originally the SS Dover, built in 1965 by Swan Hunters in Wallsend. she had served under multiple names and roles: Dover, Earl Seward, Sol Express, even taken part in the evacuation of the US Embassy in Beirut. Quadrini bought her in the late 80s. During the tour from Limassol, she actually broke free in rough seas and drifted for 7 days before being recovered. When the Princess moved to Glasgow in 1988, the new ship replaced her under the Tyne Bridge. After repairs and a full conversion, she opened in 1989 as the Tuxedo Royale. Quadrini had initially called it the Tuxedo Express, a nod to its former name, Sol Express, but probably decided it didn't sound classy enough, and the Royale was born. The Tuxedo Royale offered multiple themed rooms: the Commodore Suite, Admiral Suite, Club Europa, where most of the action happened, and Buzz Bar, where Metro FM's Dave Brever moonlighted and bands like The Real Thing played. There was also Berlin's Cocktail Bar, which pulled in around 10 grand a week. By then, European Leisure, EL, owned the Royale, as well as Lucky's, Macy's, Masters, Madison's, and President's. Quadrini had been forced off the board of EL after disputes over financial records at the Eldon Garden offices. The police were even called, although he still owned significant shares. In 1991, the Royale spent a month under house arrest by customs officers, although customers were completely unaware as the nightclub business continued to operate. Relations deteriorated badly. EL even proposed secretly moving the Royale to Southampton, but Quadrini vowed to open an even better boat if they tried. Meanwhile, the original Princess in Glasgow was in a terrible condition, closed and up for sale. Fewer than 10 years after the floating nightclub dream began, things were collapsing. 2 ships in limbo, massive debts, failing leases and shareholder warfare. In 1992, EL folded and put the Royale up for sale, and Quadrini threatened to buy it back. He even left a briefcase in the office to secretly record former employees trying to take money from the struggling company. He finally regained the boat in May 1992, buying back the business and promising to take it up market again. By 1994, he even had a £1 million tax bill overturned. The tax office had argued that a moored ship on Crown property should still pay business rates. By the late 90s, plans emerged to move the Tuxedo Royale to Middlesbrough. Meanwhile, the Princess was to return from Glasgow due to repair work on a motorway bridge, bringing her back to her old home on the Tyne. The Royale received a £2 million refurbishment and reopened as the UK's first floating casino in Middlesbrough at the Millennium. It became a popular pre-match spot for Borough fans until it closed in 2006. In 2009, its owners, Absolute Leisure, went into administration, leaving the ship decaying at Abel's docks in Middlesbrough, with debts of around 200 grand. With no funding or structure to maintain it, the vessel was hit by vandalism, theft and structural decline. Campaigners attempted to save her, as one of the last Steamlink UK steam turbine-powered ships, even securing a spot on the National Historic Ships Register in 2016. But deterioration accelerated. In 2011, the ship developed a serious list. In 2017, a major fire caused severe damage. And by 2018, the port and the regulators agreed she had to be demolished. After asbestos removal, she was refloated and towed to Hartlepool in September 2019 to be dismantled, ending her story from 1965 to 2019. Meanwhile, back on the River Tyne, the Princess, the smaller of the 2 ships, had undergone a £2 million refit and prepared to reopen. There were delays due to asbestos and a fire during refurbishment, but she eventually returned. By the 2000s though, the Gateshead Quays were being redeveloped. The area was shifting towards modern architecture, cultural venues and new hospitality projects. Quadrini fiercely opposed the £3 million Baja Beach Club opening on his side of the river, but it went ahead regardless. The Princess was ageing, expensive to maintain, and now clashing with the new vision for the waterfront. Even appearances by Frank Bruno and East 17 couldn't revive her fortunes. Northumbria police objected to the club's licence because of the Drink All You Want promotions, and the boat was becoming associated with heavy drinking and rowdy behaviour. By 2007, the Tuxedo Princess's time was up again. She closed looking tired after decades of partying and was supposed to be towed to Greece for a new life as a floating casino. A farewell event took place in December 2007, and in July 2008, crowds gathered as the princess was towed away for the last time. Plans for a Greek refit collapsed after the financial crash, and the ship was eventually sold for scrap and dismantled in Turkey later that year. That ended the life of the original Tuxedo Princess, 1961 to 2008. The Tuxedo Princess and Royale may be long gone, but their spirit lingers. Quadrini's idea of turning old ferries into floating discos somehow defined whole nights out and whole eras. Love them or loathe them, those boats left a mark on the Tyne, and on anyone who ever staggered off them.